Today's episode is a conversation with Matti Banon, a Chabad shlucha on a campus university in Montreal, a seminary Torah teacher, a mother, and a woman passionate about all things parenting. Today we discuss what it looks like to truly lead our lives with agency, what we can learn about a Jewish perspective on parenting that could impact the way that we choose to lead ourselves and have agency over our own lives. Matti speaks about the importance of compassion, curiosity, humility in our experiences of personal growth, shares incredible Torah teachings that give insight into what it looks like to have humility about our humanity so that we can truly begin to grow from a place of self-compassion and a true belief in our inherent goodness. This is the perfect pre-Rosh Hashanah conversation, not only because Matti brings some beautiful teachings related to the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, but also because as we are making this accounting of ourselves, as we are addressing and assessing our previous year and the upcoming one, being able to come rooted from a place of compassion and self-nurture is so integral to being able to create sustainable growth. Enjoy. Matti, welcome to Human and Holy.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm very honored.
Yeah, it's going to be a special conversation. I can already feel it.
Okay.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. So my name is Matti Banon. I'm a campus shlucha in Montreal and a mother of, Baruch Hashem, a large family. And it was actually to my honor, it's my daughter that convinced me to come and told me that I have to do this. So here I am. And yeah.
I'm so happy to have you here. As we were saying before you got on, that it's special to have a daughter who's representing you, proud of you, wants to see you share.
Yeah, promoting me.
Promoting you.
Usually kids are a little bit like, okay, Ma, But here, yeah, she's my fan, and I'm very honored and I'm very blessed. And we went through a lot to get to where we are today, our relationship, and yeah.
That's very special. And you shared that one of your passions in life is parenting. So I think it would make sense that would translate to a daughter who's so proud of you.
Maybe. Sometimes we get lucky. I'll tell you, it was told a while ago that we don't take credit for the things that go right, and we also shouldn't be blamed. We do our best. Abishur sends us these children, they are treasures, and we really just do our best. I learned a long time ago, if there's one thing I could tell parents out there, drop the agenda. And as soon as we recognize that Hashem is really the third partner and gives us the ability to raise these children, not as what we would necessarily want to form them into, but as just their own selves, each one a whole universe, then we can have the nachas, even though these kids are not our nachas machines by far. But in the end, when you realize and you recognize that they are their own beings and you're here to just bring them on to their journey and be a support for them wherever Hashem decided they should be, first of all, the burden just rolls off your shoulders because you recognize that Hashem is part of this, process of raising them, and yeah, it becomes much easier to handle, and you're able to recognize the beauty and just be aware of the fact that you've been given such a sacred job
of parenting.
Of parenting.
Wow, and guarding these precious souls.
Yeah.
Today what we're going to be talking about is what it looks like to lead ourselves. Because in order to guide others, as you are saying so beautifully, through parenting, without an agenda, and to see the preciousness of their souls, we also have to know how to lead ourselves in our lives. I remember hearing someone once say that the first step of parenting is becoming an adult. Once you become an adult and you know how to lead yourself, then being able to guide others is a natural next step that you're able to access from there. Do you agree with that?
It's interesting because you said that we're going to speak about leading ourselves, and I think, could we turn it into nurturing ourselves? I think that a lot of times we have these expectations of ourselves, and that creates a certain pressure. But when and this is what my thing is when I speak to parents, and I say, live and let live. Be there as a guide, be there as a dogma chaya, be there as a support for your child. You'll see how much they'll grow. They'll grow in front of your eyes. You won't even realize. But when you try to cement things, when you try to put things in, borders, then they have no room to grow. And I feel like the same goes for ourselves. So it's interesting you said lead, and I wonder if, and again, everyone who knows me knows that there is, I do lead, I understand that. But I wonder if we take the pressure off of leading and we just do some nurturing. I wonder if we'll allow that self-growth to just go in ways beyond that we ever expected.
I loved that reframe. I loved that. That maybe when we focus on nurturing ourselves, then the leadership comes naturally, or the growth that we're seeking and the ownership over our lives comes naturally.
Yeah, and I don't even know if leadership is for everybody. I just think, live and let live. I know that there are people that are artists out there, and they're like, they would shy away from the fact that they have to lead. And that's okay, because Hashem doesn't want everybody to be leaders, There's leaders and there's followers, and we have to be true to ourselves, basically, is what I'm saying.
So when I was saying leading ourselves, I was actually thinking about it a little differently. I wasn't thinking leading others. I was thinking taking leadership over our own selves, identities, and lives, as opposed to other people. Meaning, once we learning how to lead ourselves. Do you get what I mean? As opposed to
I'll tell you why I love
positions.
That. Because I feel like the first step to doing that is getting to know ourselves. And what better position to be in as a parent, as a mother, than to get to know yourself. Because as we realize and recognize, hey, this isn't working, let's figure it out. We have to figure ourselves out. When we figure ourselves out, things start to fall in place, and we say, okay, so how could I work on myself? And how could I be a better version of who I am, not necessarily who I thought I would be or who I think I should be. So, okay, I'll take back that word lead.
Lead will enter back into the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, but I love that you understood it a different way, so that you added something beautiful there with the word nurture.
Yeah.
What do you think the first step of being able to take ownership over ourselves and experience that agency is in our lives?
Okay, so it's actually really, really interesting. It's not something that I would have ever wanted to hear from someone telling me this, but the first step is to actually notice the discomfort, notice the triggers, notice when I'm like not feeling aligned or not feeling, my best self. I think that when we notice that, we get to learn ourselves a little bit more. So there's an interesting thought that I keep in mind, that when Hashem gave us that opportunity in Gan Eden to not eat from the tree of knowledge, so afterwards what happened was we ate, and then Hashem gave man and woman, Adam and Chava, and the snake, so-called curses, meaning they are curses, but through the lens of Chassidus, we see them as blessings. So for example, the man was supposed to get everything for free, and now he has to work for it, right? But we know that a man that gets everything for free, it's not a good feeling after a while. When they work for something, they feel satisfied. So it looked like a curse, but it's really a blessing. The woman was told that she's going to have to suffer for having children, whether it's whatever, we don't have to mention the suffering. We know all about it. And yet, if you tell a woman, you know what? You'll never have to menstruate, you'll never have to be pregnant, you'll never have to have any labor pains, we'll just bring you children, and they'll behave all the time, right? And it's like, well, that's not really a blessing, right? I want to be able to go through that. That's my blessing. Then comes the snake. And the snake was told that it's going to lie on its belly, it's going to slither, it's going to lose its limbs, and it's going to eat the dust of the earth. So you think about that, wait a second, but that seems like not fair. It's going to find food wherever it wants. So the answer to that is, Hashem is saying, I'm so disappointed in your existence, I don't want to hear from you for the rest of your life. Which means that every time we have a lack, a void, a need, this is almost like Hashem saying, cuckoo, I want to hear from you. I want to connect with you. So when it comes to connecting with ourselves, unfortunately, this is how it is that when things are not going right, when there's discord, when there's conflict, when things are not going according to what you thought you'd want life to turn out, or your day, or your moment, that's an opportunity to take a look inside and say, okay, what's up? What's going on?
I love that reframe. Yeah. And then that can be the first entrance into beginning.
Awareness is number one. I think that's the hardest thing, or recognizing where it's coming from. And then the biggest gift we could give ourselves is, validation, compassion, understanding, empathy. Because once we have compassion, there's no longer that defense mechanism just goes down. So I give the example of when a child wants to, let's say, fight you. I mean, it's in their nature, right? And they're not fighting anyone because you're just accepting them for who they are. You're just being there for them, with them. Then everything melts. I have one of my all-time favorite stories with Reb Levi Yitzchak Berdichev. On Yom Kippur, he ended up being in the heavenly spheres through all of his tefillah that he did. And he saw the Satan himself with a big, huge bag. And he took a peek into the bag, and he was so frightened. There was just monsters in the bag. And so didn't know what to do, but the Satan was not around. He was, I guess, going to collect more averos of, the Jewish nation. So he said he's just going to take one out. Takes one out, and it's an image of a person stealing. But then he sees this person has children to feed. That's the only reason he stole. And as he's being done the chaf as he's judging favorably this person who did a wrongdoing, it melts. And he goes through the bag, each one. And the story goes on. But the point is, if we could only look at our deeds, our misdeeds, the things that we do wrong, with compassion, they won't take us over. They won't hijack us.
When we're able to hold them more softly and to see the backstory of why we've done what we've done.
Yeah. I know I'm making it sound easy. I don't mean to make it sound easy. It's a lifetime work and it's a lifetime journey. But that's why I said the first step is just awareness, or recognizing that there's something, a trigger, there's something that's going off inside of us. Because I feel like if we recognize it, again, it doesn't hijack us. We have an opportunity to look at it with kind eyes. It's not easy.
Well, I'd love to play devil's advocate, because I think a lot of people say when you do that, you excuse yourself from accountability. So if you're trying to step into taking ownership over your life as an adult, to choose how you want to show up in the world, if the first step is awareness and compassion for my mistakes, or to do as Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev did, which was to lift every single failing and to understand where it came from, people could fear that would lead them to do more and to not take their faults or mistakes seriously.
So I'm a very strong believer that every human on the face of this earth wants to do good. I usually say that about children, but I'm saying about every human. And if anyone wants to challenge that, I will ask them, okay, how did they grow up? What, nurture versus nature? What were they surrounded with? Were they given, and also we do have a Yetzer Hara, it's normal. But the deep and truest desire of every individual is to do good. Any reason somebody doesn't do good is because something's off, right? Having a bad day, having a headache, it's normal. If I didn't sleep all night, maybe I'll be crabby. All these things are normal. So I'm not trying to say I have every right to be crabby if I had a bad day. Absolutely not. Take ownership of your deeds. But I think what I was referring to is more of an inner. Recently I said something, I was discussing with a friend, and we were saying, what does Bechira Chavshis mean? Bechira Chavshit, it means that you have free choice. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't choose who I'm going to marry, right? It was Bashert. Whoever Hashem decided, the other half Neshama. I didn't choose where I'm going to live because I have a mission to fulfill. This is where I live. This is where Hashem placed me. I didn't choose who my children will be, right? They're sparks of an energy that I am lucky enough to help them along their journey. So what do I actually get to choose? And it boils down to three things that I learned from the Rebbe, and that is machshava, dibur, maisa. Thought, speech, and action. These are the only things that are within my jurisdiction. And a lot of times we feel like all of these three expressions of the soul are influenced by our emotions. So if we could, and it's true, they are influenced, but I guess what we as Chabad Chassidim do is we try to get our intellect involved and try to make sure our emotions are not in charge. But what some of us forgot, it took me years to realize that and recognize that through Chassidus and through therapy and through speaking to mentors, is that the emotions still exist. They have every right to exist. They just can't be in charge. So when we take that emotion, we treat it as a child, which is what the Tanya tells us, that an emotion is like a child, and we nurture it. That thought comes in, and it's developed because of an emotion, and we give it that compassion. We're now enabling us to then have a thought, speech, and action, which is the right way, in the right fashion. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I loved what you said. And I and I wasn't challenging you. I really just...
No, I love challenges. It's okay.
Yeah, but which is fine too. But more, I wanted to like fully expound on that idea, especially if someone has that feeling of concern around giving themselves compassion, where they're afraid of where it will lead. And I love that you spoke about this idea of bringing in the mind when we want to experience personal transformation. This is a very core Chassidic idea of Chabad, Chachma Bina Das, that it's through the intellect and through the development of ideas and really integrating ideas that we experience real shifts in our lives. As you said, we still have a real emotional world. So can you talk a little bit more about the balance or the process of integrating ideas in our lives where we could really change how we live with them, and also honoring our natural emotional world? And what does it look like to fuse those two things so that we could be intentional about how we live and we are operating from a headspace that's godly while also allowing ourselves to be fully human?
So the first thing I want to say is that even if I give a little tip or like a recipe, let's just say, I do want to remind myself and everyone out there that this is a lifetime journey. And I've heard the expression before, like you have a Bainani moment. So I would love to welcome everybody to, let's say, have a moment of what you just said, but not to expect 24/7. And I remember once at a shir hearing saying that our the society that we live in is a lot based on like goal oriented, like run the marathon or lose this weight, or everything is like goal, you know, and it's like when you reach that goal, then you're good. But what I learned then, it was that Judaism is not like that. The journey is the goal. So every single time I go through a moment where I have to work on myself, or emotion comes up that I don't really agree with that emotion necessarily, or my intellect is having a different opinion than my emotion, you know, which happens all the time, that is a moment of growth, that in itself. And I shouldn't think that I'm only there when I'm actually like aligned or did whatever you just said that you're asking me how to do. I don't think I could repeat it, but I feel like entering Hashem into the relationship between like me and myself and Hashem, I feel like Hashem is so much more like understanding and forgiving and knows that we're human, and that the challenges that we face are so real, and that the expectations we have of ourselves are high. It's almost like we don't let ourselves fail. Like I know, I'm talking to myself also. And there is a mashal that I give also to my students. I say, how come you could take a picture of something, let's say the Eiffel Tower. My students are mostly Frenchies. And then you have a painting of the Eiffel Tower. And the painting doesn't really look exactly like it is. It's different. Maybe it's a different shade, or it's a different proportion. And yet the painting could cost, you know, so much more than just a picture. But it's not perfect. But that's what it is. So the picture that somebody took, how much effort did they put into it? But the painting, the person invested themselves into the painting. And the fact that it's not perfect actually brings up value. So now I start to think of myself, okay, so let's say I sometimes have to remind myself I'm only human, by the way. So I'm like, whoa, okay. So now I remind myself that I'm human. Maybe I'm a little disappointed, but that's okay. And I'm like, wait, but this is what Hashem wants. What does that mean? That means that my failures, which I would rather not have and not admit to, are what brings me value. Again, I'm not saying that we should be proud of anything we do wrong. All I'm saying is that when things are difficult for us, we should know that was part of the plan. You know, I tell my students, I'm like, Hashem created the world in 6 days. And on the 2nd day, there were some angels that were created on the 5th day, right? Why did Hashem continue going? Everything was going great. You know, the world was running. And here comes humans. Wow. We mess up. We pollute the world. We're disrespectful. I don't want to mention all the things we do wrong. And yet Hashem said, this is what I want. I want someone who's imperfect to serve me. What does that mean? That means when an imperfect being serves Hashem, that's the ultimate. So I understand that I have to strive for a better me. But I also have to recognize that when I'm not the best of the best, That's okay. That's what Hashem wants from me. And I feel like when we are more understanding on ourselves, then it's almost like setting the fertile environment for growth. When you were saying about how come some people will feel like the compassion is, making them a leeway to, but I don't feel that way. I'm a strong believer that when you feel good about yourself, I see that in kids. When kids feel good about themselves, they'll behave better, whatever that word means, behave better.
I actually love that you said your failings are where your value is, and that's really where the sweetness is for God. Or that Tanya speaks about that experience, that it's so easy to look at the sweetness of someone whose divine service is easy and not to recognize that the complex flavor of someone who's struggling and failing is actually the most rewarding thing for God. And it brings us back to the Garden of Eden about putting in effort for what we receive, and that it's not necessarily about an end goal, but it's actually like being within those harder parts of our character and being able to refine them gently and slowly, where like that is where our mission in this world is.
Right. So you're bringing up Yaakov Avinu with the sweet and the spicy.
Yeah.
Right. It's true. It's true. Well, I have one of my daughters, we won't mention names. And so the school, in the beginning of the year, said, like, do you want to tell us anything about her? She's entering. So I just said sweet and spicy.
That's great.
She has both.
But that's such like a beautiful description for humans. Aren't we all sweet and spicy?
We have our moments. We have our sour moments too, though. Yeah.
We're light and sweet, sour, spicy. We're
Bitter.
light and dark. We really do contain that within us. And I love that you express that Judaism is not about a specific goal, and we do live in such a goal-oriented society, and it's very easy to create one big goal around our own Judaism, but it's about that personal process. Question for you.
Yeah.
What has been your experience with these ideas?
I noticed that when people call me or message me or whatever, when I'm, let's say, giving advice to someone, I noticed how easy it is to be hard on oneself and how that just stunts growth. It's just so, we don't need an inner critic. We are our inner critic. We don't even need help from anybody else. And there is something beautiful that I read in a book about how, I implemented this from a book that I read in a parenting course that I took, about how just taking that inner critic and transforming it into your buddy. It's like, the bully. They say, how does a victim act towards a bully so the bully stops bullying? We all know the bully is suffering even more than the victim, otherwise he wouldn't bully, So when the inner critic says something to us, if you could just take a layer off and see the pain, that would kind of give us a little inkling into why we're hearing those critical and judgmental voices.
Would you be open to sharing the book that you read? Or
so I think that's why I wasn't sure if I should say the book, because I'm not sure. I think it's nonviolent communication.
Okay.
It's, don't judge the book by the name of it. It's a really incredible book.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, nonviolent communication. I didn't say it because I wasn't sure it's that. But you know what? Even if it's not that, we could learn from that book.
It's still a good book.
Yeah.
Still a good book. Read that book.
Yeah.
Transforming our inner critic into our friend. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I'll just give you a little example, okay? So for example, I remember, first of all, I remember throughout raising my first set of, when my big kids were little, I had this dream of saying, people that smoke, they're like, oh, it's been 5 years I don't smoke. So I had this dream. It's been since I didn't yell at my kids. I always had this dream. I was like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. But in between when I'm going to get there, there was always this thing like, okay, chlata today, no yelling. And, the kids are going to go to school. This morning we're going to have an amazing morning. And so this kid wasn't listening. That kid, everything normal stuff. And I was just not yelling. I'm like, this is great. Then we get to the breakfast table and a poor kid just spills their milk and I lost it. And I'm like, what did I just do? What did I just do? This poor kid spilled their milk. What? I couldn't believe it. The kid that didn't listen to me because they didn't want to brush their teeth or was this, I should have yelled at them. What is this kid? So I understood and I recognized after working on myself, it's because I was holding it in or whatever it is. I wasn't being true to myself. So what did the inner critic do? You did it again. Such a failure. Look, You just did it. You just yelled at your kids. You think you're so, and you give parenting advice. Wow. You give parenting advice and you yell at your kids. Really something. And you call yourself, and you became from your Baal Tshuva. Wow. And you're a shlucha. And you want more kids. You think you could handle more kids. Oh, really? Okay. So this is like obviously going on in half a second, right? So when I was able to, when on a good day, right? So what's the response? The response would be like, so I understand it's not comfortable to say you did the best you can. It's not very comfortable. You did the best you can. But how about saying, you know what? Where are your intentions? What did you really want? Yeah, it's true. You yelled at your kids. It's true. So now your kids could grow up actually, and when they run their homes, they're not going to say my mother was a saint and she was able to handle everything. They might say that it was tough sometimes. And then when I don't know if they're going to lose it on their kids, but let's say when they have a rough moment, they were like, okay, hold on, this is normal, right? So again, all I'm doing is I'm taking off the roughness of the edges of the comments. So I'm looking at myself as if I would look at someone else. What would you say to a good friend that's having a rough morning? What would you say? Would you say, how could you yell at the kid that dropped her milk, that spilled her milk? What are you doing? You're like abusing your child. That's what our inner critic says, but I would never say that to a friend. You know what I would say? I would say, how did you sleep last night? What did you do when that first kid didn't listen to you? Did you take a deep breath? Did you look inside yourself and say, it's okay, they're going to grow up one day? Or did you just move on because you were in a rush? Do you realize what people do under pressure? Do you realize what people go through when they know they have a time? Do you know what happens when babies cry? It could make a person crazy. Your baby was crying that morning, you needed to nurse, you weren't on time, all these things. It takes the scene and it makes you human, back to human. And again, I am not saying it was right for me to scream. All I'm saying is that if I'm going to berate myself for screaming, I might scream again. And if I'm going to be understanding, I'm allowing myself this humanness, and I'm giving myself an opportunity to grow, because I could only grow if I'm in an environment that doesn't stunt the growth, right? That allows growth. So then the next time I'm about to yell, I'm going to say, well, hopefully, right? Well, until the time that I no longer yell, which was a couple of parenting courses later, which we could speak about that. But what I did do is we learned about this thing, green light, red light, yellow light. So most of us go from green to red. We're calm and then like this. But there's actually yellow light that we don't notice. And what we did like a family session, what the lady explained is that if you allow the yellow light to just last a little longer, it might be easier to get back to green. Or orange light, whatever. So at a certain point, I don't know if my kids remember, but it was like, okay, mommy's getting orange. You know, that was not a warning. It was just like, so then it developed into, okay, so this helped me a lot actually. I would say, okay, mommy's screaming voice is coming inside. So it's here. Let's see what we could do to not make it go higher. Now, I don't totally agree with that, because you're almost like leaving it to the kids. The kids have to be kids. So I don't like the fact that I put it on the kids, like the onus is on me, not on them. But first of all, I gave everyone a warning. I told everybody, okay, you're listening to your Yetzer Hara now. My Yetzer Hara wants me to listen to it. Let's see. Let's see if you could stop listening to your Yetzer Hara and I'll stop listening to mine.
Oh my gosh.
And my Yetzer Hara is telling me to scream really loud. And I don't want to. I don't want to listen to my Yetzer Hara. Anyway, so off the record. But what happened to me is when I said that I have a screaming voice coming inside of me, I now made it disattached. I am a loving mother, and the screaming voice is coming it's like taking me over. But I kind of like, when I disattached it, I didn't become that witch that I was seeing myself as. Again, I hope I answered your question.
Did that help you manage the screaming voice that you're describing?
Absolutely. It gave me time. You know what happens? We have different parts of our brain that are in charge of different things. And the back part of our brain, right, the reptilian, we call it the downstairs part. It's from a book called The Whole Brain Child. That's in charge of safety and security. Like it's if someone is in danger, it has to wake up. But then when it's awake, the upstairs part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex, is not awake, is not aroused. So if there's a fire, I'm not going to be like, honey, I think it's important for you to get out of bed. I'm going to grab my kid and just run out of the house, right? So when this part of our brain wakes up, I'm on like, this is like danger. But taking kids to school is not danger. It's not dangerous if they're late to school, and it's not dangerous if they fight. So I had to learn to understand that, okay, this part of my brain is activated. How do I recognize that this is a safe situation, that everybody is okay? What I say is like, Hashem is in charge. My kids know if I'm stuck in traffic, I'll say Hashem is in charge. That helps me calm down. Hashem is in charge of time. Hashem is in charge of, So as soon as I was able to, so saying my screaming voice is coming inside of me, that's already using the upstairs part of my brain, the prefrontal cortex, and it's allowing me to be in charge. And my emotions are not going to hijack me.
Yeah.
Because that's what we tend to do when we don't, use the machshal ta'alev, then our emotions can take over. What I did need to learn, because machshal ta'alev comes quite easy to me, like my sister says.
Can you explain the concept?
Yeah. So first of all, my sister taught me about the 4 bodies. There's the emotional body, intellectual body, physical body, and spiritual body. And each of us have like a voice, but one is stronger. Each of us have these 4 bodies, and one like speaks louder. Like you'll have some people, when they're cold, they're not just cold, they're freezing, or they're starving, or they're exhausted. It's because their physical body actually is louder. It's just louder. And emotionally also, you have like people that are sensitive. It's because their emotional body is louder. They're more in tune with their emotional body. Well, that's to say it nicely. So my intellectual body is, my sister likes to say it bullies my emotional body. Like it just wants to be in charge. So machshal ta'alev, it means mind over heart. And the expression is mind over matter. So it means that the mind is kind of in control. So that's like my go-to place. What I need to do in my journey is remind myself that emotions have a place. That emotions have a right to exist. Have a right to exist is already my intellectual talking. I recognize it. Emotions play a very important role. And that took me actually a very long time to recognize that, because for me, emotions were like, imagine you let the kids just rule. Like the kids are just going to rule. It's going to be chaos. Except there's also beauty when the kids are just, and have a certain sense of freedom with boundaries, understandably so.
So the same thing as with our own emotional world.
Yeah. I believe that if we treat our emotions like we should be treating children, we will feel more balanced inside of us. So for example, if a child says, I'm scared, and then we used to think that it's okay to say, there's nothing to be scared of. And if we just stop for a moment and we say, well, why did we used to say that? That's because we don't feel comfortable with any emotion that we can't control. So I asked recently, I was trying to give a mashal on something, why are we scared of bugs? Why some people are scared of bugs, spiders, beetles. It makes absolutely no sense. Look how much bigger we are. So did you ever think of that? Why are people scared of bugs?
Well, some of them can sting, some of them are large and scary looking.
But spiders don't sting. People have, because we can't control, we don't know where they're going to go next. They're out of our control.
Yeah.
Anything that we can control has a potential to make us scared. So emotions that we can't control, we're scared of. So I don't want this baby to cry, and I don't want my child to be scared, and I don't want them to be sad. I don't want any human to be sad or angry, or it's like, because then I don't know what's going to be. But when we recognize that, no, actually, we could, when we allow this, let's say, fear to exist, when we're giving it a space, it doesn't take over. Am I explaining myself?
Yeah, like when it has space to breathe and exist, then it comes out of the driver's seat.
Yeah, it doesn't need to take over, it doesn't need to hijack the person. So maybe the first step, there's awareness, there's recognizing, and then there's just accepting what's going on inside of me. Because as long as I don't accept it, it's almost like it's going to get nastier. It's going to get stronger because it didn't have its chance to say anything. Back to, children, if a child is trying to get your attention, and it's not getting your attention when it's being calm. It's going to try to be louder and, nagging. And so our emotions, if we could just take a little bit of time to just take stock and just look in and tap into our feelings and say, okay, buddy, what's up today? I hear you.
Do you think our emotions are ever an appropriate driver for our actions?
It's interesting because they say that when it comes to shidduchim, matchmaking, when it comes to somebody choosing who they're going to marry, what I understand is that the Rebbe tells us this is a time where we actually do need to get counsel from our heart. I don't know of any other time that our heart is kind of allowed. Our heart is allowed to have an opinion, absolutely, but it's not really allowed to. We can't just do something because we're in the mood, because we're not always in the mood. But it's interesting when it comes to your soulmate, you have to see if the heart is leading the way.
That's interesting because you said we have to receive counsel from the heart in that circumstance when choosing who we marry. Would you liken that to choosing what our path is, our purpose in life? Because a lot of these things are not so clear-cut what the right choice is with our minds. Are there any other times when we can receive counsel from our hearts?
So it's interesting you said they're not always clear-cut. I don't know any situation where a path is so clear-cut at all. I feel like, I understand maybe not everyone is going to agree with me, I feel like Hashem puts you in a place and it's your opportunity to discover what's wanted and needed from you in that place.
Okay.
I don't know if we have so much jurisdiction over what our mission is or what our path is placed before us. Then now that it's placed before us, now I get to choose, like we said, the thought, the speech, and the action. It boils down to these three things. What am I going to do? What and how am I going to speak? And what thoughts am I allowing to take space in my mind? Because we know that thoughts come that are not necessarily our thoughts, right? The Tanya talks about that also. Thoughts come and they're foreign thoughts. So if I have a thought, for example, I've worked on myself for many years, and it's also, I think, a God-given gift that I have, that and anyone that knows me knows that about me, is I don't judge people. Like, I judge favorably all the time, even when it's not a good idea to do that. I always judge favorably. So whenever I have a thought that is judging a person not favorably, because I've worked on myself, I recognize that's not mine. That's not my thought. It's not familiar to me. I don't want to own it. I don't want to give it any, it's just not mine. So like someone once suggested, it's like, imagine you're a sky and there's clouds. So I could look up, and if someone says, what's there? I could see clouds, but I know there's a sky. So I know all of us need to know that we are pure. And then there's clouds sometimes, but the clouds are not who we are.
I love that line, that's not mine. That you can say that to yourself. And that's something that I'm hearing coming through a few times in what you're sharing, which is to be able to separate yourself from your difficult experiences or your failings or your flaws so that you could tend to them in a more level-headed way. Yeah,
and learn from them and tend to them and dare I say, admire them. That's already a higher level.
What do you mean by that?
It's so easy to look at our faults and just be disappointed. It's normal, actually. I would never want somebody to say, I'm so happy that I did something wrong. But this podcast is called Human and Holy. So being human, it's so normal. And if we could get to the point where we look at ourselves and we say, we forgive ourselves for things that we may not approve of, that we do. Again, it's only to lead on to being our better selves. And I wonder if that's like that misbehaving child, shall we say, that just wants to be loved for who they are and not changed and shifted into what we think they should be.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I had a child who really showed me that if I think I know parenting, oh wow, I was like, okay, hold on one second. Either I do something about it or become a mother that I never wanted to become. like a mean mother, you know, because he was impossible. He was a monster. And we shifted the way that we parent. Not that we were parenting that bad before, my husband and I, not at all. Like, but everything with the times, right? What was okay 30 years ago, the biggest thing was time out. That was a big deal. Why?
Right.
Because time out meant that you're not going to yell, and you're not going to hit. Of course, obviously, it's already so long ago that we stopped hitting. But time out was like, you keep your calm. You're calm, cool, collective.
Right.
Now what we're recognizing is, what does time out do? Time out, this kid is sitting there. When I say kid, I'm talking also about the inner self. This kid is sitting there, and he or she is not saying, I really shouldn't have hit my sister. Wow, that was like really not such a good thing to do. Next time I think I'm going to do better. No, they're like, I hate my sister, and my mother hates me, and they're just living in their own filth while they're in timeout. That's not so fun. So what did we learn to do with our precious 10-year-old? Time in. And nobody understood. I didn't think of this. This was a parenting course that I took. It's called Aha Parenting. And Dr. Laura Markham. And the time in is basically, everyone was like, what? He just did that and you're giving him attention? Like, that feels so wrong. It's counterintuitive. But back to what I said before, is every human wants to do good. There must have been something going on. Did he want my attention? Did he need my attention? What was going on? It's not right. He knows that it's not right what he did. But the punishment of being, ousted from the family is not going to help me be a better person. It's just not.
So what does discipline look like in those moments? Let's say a child hits someone and it's time in, which I just so hear that perspective. Like, there's something going on in this child and they need my presence and attention and connection.
Right.
So how do you teach them that the behavior is not allowed when it comes to a child?
Right. So there's two things I want to say, but the first thing I want to say is, and I know this doesn't sound comfortable because I don't think that I would appreciate being told this, but I've been there, done that.
Okay, I want to hear.
They will not hit forever. They just won't. They will not throw their food forever. They will eventually be in underwear. And I know I didn't appreciate when people say, so forgive me for all those out there that are going through something. It won't last forever. I have to always remind myself.
I love that.
Who's the child and who's the parent? So if you have like a guidebook, how to be a 2-year-old. Oh, so the 2-year-old has to have tantrums. Oh, how to be, this child, they have to be selfish. It's normal. Teenagers, they have to, have some sort of rebel. They have to answer back. It's written in the guidebook rules.
That they study every night when they're going to bed.
So can I be the mother? I need to be the mother. I'm not the one that's going to answer back or have the tantrum or rebel or look at them in disdain the way they're looking at me. I have to play the mother role. And the mother role, in my opinion, is nurturing. Now, again, everybody knows in my house, I don't accept, misbehavior, whatever you're saying. They know it because it's the decorum of my house. They know they have to speak respectfully. They know, it's a set decorum in my house that they know their expectations. And when they go off, it doesn't mean that I love them less. I'm making it sound very easy. But I do want to say something that I've worked on myself to recognize, and that is that my role as a mother is to be there for them. And when can I be there for them? When things are not going as planned, when there's the rough moments, when there's conflict, when there's whining, when there's complaining, then it's like, hineni. I can't deny the fact that those moments wake up this part of the brain. It's normal, right? I'm not gonna, but I'm good at faking being calm. I'm good at that. I've developed that. And so back to our inner self. So I wonder when there's a moment of discord and conflict within ourselves and discomfort, and I wonder if that's when we should say, hineni. I'm here for you. I'm here for you in the ugly moments. And I wonder if that's really what Hashem wants us to show up for ourselves,
That is so beautiful. To be able to say that to a child who's struggling, to be able to say that to ourselves when we're struggling, and to recognize that those moments are opportunities to say Hineni to Hashem, to this person in front of us, to our own selves.
Any opportunity that is not just like going with the flow, or perfectly, if you could write a fantasy book and it's going to be written in that book, is an opportunity to bring Hashem back into the picture. And that's what I was speaking about the snake, is that every void, every lack, every need, okay, Hashem, I don't know what's going on. You know, I used to, in the mornings when I would say the morning blessings with my children, the morning brachas, now I miss it because they all say it on their own. But when I used to say it out loud with everybody, so it's easier to have intention when you're saying a blessing out loud. So recently I said to somebody that, because she was asking how could she say the morning blessings with her 3-year-old. I said, you just say it, don't worry. She's 3. She'll listen to you. Yeah. But we used to, at a certain point, one of my daughters got glasses, one of my daughters had scoliosis, and one of my daughters was a fashionista. She still is.
Okay.
I mean, they still all have glasses and scoliosis, well, whatever. Okay. But in the morning blessings, just to make it a little more alive, so we would say, okay, Pokeach Ivrim is for this daughter, and, you know, Zokef Kfufim for this one, you know, and so recently, now that the morning rush that I lived with for, you know, more than 20 years of my life has calmed down, I'm like, oh wait, I have no more excuses. I actually need to do my prayers and, you know, want to, get to. Yeah. So I start to look into it and I'm like, oh, what is Rakah Aretz Alamayim? That the earth is on the water. What does that mean? I don't understand. Why am I blessing God every single day for making earth like stable earth in the water? I wasn't understanding why I have to thank every day. I understand why I have to thank for my vision. I get that totally. Or the strength of a Jew, or there's so many that I understand. This one I was questioning, and I realized, wow, there are moments in my life where I don't know if I feel the stability of the ground under me. I don't know. People won't believe. People used to be like, no, you never yell at your kids. I'm like, I must give a great impression, you know? Yeah. So people just get this impression of me, but it's a constant, I don't want to say constant battle, but it's an avodah. It's to work on. So recently when I said, Rakah Aretz Alamayim, that means, yeah, Hashem, thank you so much that I feel grounded. That I'm able to, that I don't feel like I'm in a sinking ship, you know?
Yeah. To feel the ground beneath you. I think also you spoke about how uncertainty is often an opportunity to make space for Hashem. I'm wondering, as you're talking, if part of it is that in our uncertainty, we are able to access the truth of reality, which is that we are not in control.
Right.
When we feel certain and it seems like everything's panning out, there is that voice that feels like you are in control. And in the uncertainty, suddenly it's like, oh, right, God is actually the one calling the shots. And so then
love it.
Creates an open space.
I was just speaking to my daughter on the way here, and we spoke about, I forgot what we spoke about. Oh, about someone, the point is, she had made a suggestion, and I said, the person has to be willing to hear. This person has to be receptive. And I recognize that sometimes the more, I'm making a general statement, materialistic our lives are, it's kind of almost automatically, unless we work on ourselves, it's almost automatically that we have a tendency for, I'll say, lack of humility. I won't even go to the arrogance part. And I believe that humility is the keli, is the vessel to accomplish what you just said before. When there's a story that comes to mind about the Baal Shem Tov once told someone to be the shofar blower for that year. And he felt very, not equipped. So he said, but you can't say no, to the Baal Shem Tov. He said, is it okay? Could it be on condition that we learn all the different Kabbalistic intonations to all the blowings? I said, sure. So they sat down, they learned, and he wrote everything down on a paper. Came time to Rosh Hashanah, he was about to, it was, his big moment. He took the shofar, can't find the paper anywhere. And he blew. And afterwards he realized he just disappointed, his Rebbe. And the Baal Shem Tov came to him. I'm not sure if it was on Rosh Hashanah, or if the Baal Shem Tov spoke on Rosh Hashanah, but whatever it is, came to him and, Yeshakayach, and he says, what do you mean? I lost the paper. I didn't have anything in mind. So the Baal Shem Tov said, I taught you all the keys to open up the different, heavenly spheres. But a broken heart is the master key. I actually had an issue with that story, meaning I didn't understand, what does it mean a broken heart? We're not supposed to be brokenhearted, right? Even the Chassidus, Tanya talks about how we're supposed to be besimcha, and we know that a prophet, a navi, only got his nevuah's prophecy if he was happy. You have to have a certain joy in order to feel godliness in your world. So what does a brokenhearted mean? And I just felt that what it was that if he would have blown the shofar with all that paper, he would have felt like, wow, I'm a somebody. And it would have been true. He is a somebody. But when he felt Hashem, Ani afar ve'efer, like Avram said, and it's in today's Tanya, what am I already? What am I? And I feel like that allows Hashem to enter our world. Could you imagine allows Hashem to enter our world? We could tap into the infinite. There's no limitations on the power that we have, technically. And last night we had the Shavar Brachas of my oldest son. And my husband said a beautiful Dvar Torah, and something beautiful about we're approaching Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. And if anything, we would think, oh, so then Elul is a month of trepidation, right? So we should be like, it's normal to feel anxious before a court case. Like the judge, why are we anxious? Because the judge has the power to tell us to do something and we have to do it. So much more so, Kadosh Baruch Hu has the power of, life and parnasa and everything. And yet, Elul is the month of rachamim. It's a month of compassion and mercy. So what could we learn out? If there's ever anything that we did wrong, and we want to set the tone to tshuva, we want to be able to make wrong things right, what we need to do is create an environment of compassion and mercy. That's Elul. The feeling in the air is that the king is coming to the field to greet us where we're at. I never saw or learned anywhere that because the king is coming to the field, you make sure that you're dressed well and that you speak well and that you're tip-top polished. No, the king is coming to greet you where you're at, which means I could be me, and Hashem still wants to shine his smiling countenance, which is what the Alter Rebbe describes as the king in the field. And so that's something that I've learned, and something that my husband said, which was really beautiful. Chai Elul is a time where we were gifted with the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, a time that brings life to the Chodesh Elul. And he said that something I taught him when you want to get the attention of a child, if you just say, come here, or wash your hands, brush your teeth, they're not listening to you. They're in their Lego, or they're in their book, or they're in their, they're in their zone. But you connect before you direct. So you could say, oh, what are you building with the Lego? They look up and they're like, an airplane. Really? Okay, pajamas. You got their attention. So my husband said, this is possibly what Hashem is telling us. I'm going to direct you on Rosh Hashanah, but I want to connect first. I want to be there at your level. That's what I do sometimes. If the kids are not listening to me, I go on the floor. I'm like playing with them, but the reason is because I want them to, do something. So Hashem is coming towards us. Hashem says, I know, I'm sure it could be really hard to do stock taking, to look at all your deeds and to figure yourself out. What should I do more of? What should I do less? Therefore, I'm going to accompany you. I'm going to set the tone of rachamim, compassion, understanding. And that's how we enter the day of judgment with who's our judge? Our Father. When Father is the judge,
Yeah. And as you've been saying all along, that if you want to grow, then the most fertile ground for growth is compassion as opposed to guilt and self-shaming. I also think that was such a beautiful story of the man losing his deep, meaningful intentions, and how very often when we come unprepared, we're able to open up our hearts to Hashem in a different way, because there's that humility and that openness and not being blocked by how we imagine, or that vision of being a somebody and having the right intentions in mind. And that when we recognize our own humanity, that's often our first entrance into having a real relationship with Hashem.
Absolutely. I recently heard something really cute. The Sephardim, they say, shlichus a whole month of Elul, right?
Yeah.
So one of the two words in chatanu lefanecha, we sinned before you. You would think, if anything, if you're sinning, don't do it before, like go behind the wall, like cringe, crouch. And here we're saying chatanu lefanecha, which means this is who we are. Hashem, accept us. Yes, we sinned, but we're before you. We're yours. And I feel like that's how we treat our children, and the child within us, like, accept me for who I am, and I promise you I will, I don't know if to say do better, but I'll make you proud. You know, this is talking, you know, within us, that we, and you mentioned about how compassion versus guilt, but again, I'm making it sound easy, but this is, you know, my lifelong journey. I want to bring that guilt in, and I want to bring all those things that we want to shun away for very good reasons. And I want to say, where is it coming from? It's so easy for me to say that guilt is bad. I see it in the Tanya. I know guilt is bad. But where is it coming from? Where is that voice coming from? It's coming from a painful place. So if we could take care of that, we don't need to shun it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Instead of choosing one over the other, we can be curious about where it's coming from.
Oh, curious is the magic word. And
as you said, I think that was very beautiful to say, it's before you, Hashem, back to the word hineni. I'm here, and it's all gonna happen with you in the room. I'm not going to let my shame bar me entry into having a relationship with Hashem or my Judaism.
Absolutely. I love the word curious because we learned it. There was a fellow campus shlucha that taught some campus shluchas about IFS, and one of the things to get through to, you know, different parts in ourselves and different, just be curious. And I recently said that to someone, and they're like, and I said, isn't that so uplifting? Like, it's not all on me to figure things out. It's not. I could just be curious, because I'll tell you. I think someone asked me about this child who was refusing to just, they're going through a tough time. They didn't want to open up. And I understand, I get that. So I just suggested, just sit down, but without judgment, just be curious. And curiosity, I feel like it lightens the mood. It's like, I'm not judging you, I'm not criticizing. So the same thing inside me, like, I'm just curious, like, what's up, you know? Our emotions come as messages to us. They come as, they're not here. Like, I was once given this example, like if you're driving a car and you see the gas light turn on, you don't go crazy, like, okay, I need gas. You know? So now, like, the emotion comes up, whatever it is, and it's like, oh, I wonder what I need. I wonder what's something, you know? Be curious.
I want to end off by asking you, this is a question I've been loving lately, is if you were sitting across from another person and just give them one message from your soul to theirs, what would you say?
So when it says love your fellow as yourself, I actually never understood that. What does it mean, love myself? So I'm still figuring it out. I don't know the love myself part. I know the love your fellow. Got that down pat. You could ask people that know me. So maybe my message is get to know yourself, and meaning message to me. Get to know yourself, because you might be surprised that there actually is so much to love.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wow. I'm really struck and feeling the sincerity of your spirit. I really feel that you shared yourself with us in a really real way. And I can see how deep everything that you shared with us is for you. And it's very moving to hear ideas from someone who's sharing them in that way. So thank you for showing up and sharing with us from a true place within. I really felt it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved it. And if you did, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating or review. It helps other people find the podcast, brings us so much joy. We love hearing from you, so email us at info@humanandholy.com. Visit humanandholy.com/sponsor to give in any amount or become a sponsor of our work or sponsor a specific episode in honor of a birthday, yard site, someone you love. New episodes come out every single Sunday and Wednesday morning. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen. Thank you so much for listening. Wishing you a beautiful holiday and a wonderful day.